Alright, making a walk and talk video. Been a while, so I figured what the hell. It's time. Gotta do the long walk today, so it's kind of a lovely sort of dayish thing. So, what the hell. Um, so I did watch some more of the, like 3 minutes more. I should have played a little bit longer because Vic Mackey lies about the circumstance again. These people are just so despicable. So anyway, he's done this, and I've seen text comments and other arguments where they've talked about negative utilitarianism, and he's maligned it as being some sort of dangerous philosophy, or conceptually dangerous. And it's really not, because you know the negative utilitarian is still bound by rules. I mean, the rule is that, yeah, the negative utilitarian would perhaps say, if you can, cause 2 rapes today to prevent 4 rapes tomorrow, that, yeah, that's what you would do. And he would call that heinous or sinister or somehow diabolical. And I call it just plain stupid. If it's a certainty that you'll have 4 tomorrow, it would be stupid not to have the 2 today. So, I mean, to call it sinister or diabolical or horrible or awful, that these terrible things will happen because of negative utilitarianism. No, terrible things will happen when, like, superstitious, silly women, control the world. And you're just being silly if you can't acknowledge that sometimes you have to have a little pain today for big, huge gain tomorrow. And it's just a fact. And people even volunteer for that stuff. There's been medical experiments done. The military especially used to do a lot of this stuff, curing things like Gucci fever or something. And it'd have soldiers volunteer, they'd volunteer because they knew that a little bit of pain today will prevent, their fellow soldiers from being killed by, some sort of mosquito bite. And they rationally understand this is a good service. Plenty of people have done heroic things for that very purpose. Now, the question of whether you have a right to impose or oblige somebody to be a hero, that's a question where, I get into this big fight with anti-bullshit man. I'm just saying, when it's a certainty, selfishness is illogical. It just is. And it's nonsense, and it's rubbish, and it's crap, and it has no merit in the circumstance. Because once you've established that you're going to gain through the process the welfare of these other individuals, and they're just as real and just as meaningful. So, your obligation is your obligation, is all I'm saying. I mean, I wouldn't like it. It's a negative circumstance, right? You're exchanging less bad for some bad. So you've already been imposed upon in the sense that you're being obliged to accept bad by the circumstance. But that's the circumstance that's doing that. You doing the right thing, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. It's just the way it is. You didn't wreck it. You didn't cause the problem. But you can't be an impediment to the best solution either. That's just as bad as being the cause of the problem, in a sense, because you're magnifying the problem. Period. So it's just he just lies and says, Gary says you can't, blah, blah. No, Gary never said that. Gary keeps saying pain in and of itself, because he's trying to get to the kernel of value. And then if you give him a thought experiment, he'll give you a straight answer. I gave you a straight answer on your baby jizzy crap. I've given you straight answers. So to quit lying, you piece of shit. And I'll defend negative utilitarianism in the sense that, yes, if you provide me an equation where some horrible thing has to happen today to prevent something twice as horrible tomorrow, I'll keep saying, yeah, okay. What choice do we have? Logically. Yeah, the rational thing to do is let the problem be twice as big tomorrow. That's the rational thing to do? No, it's not. It's the thing an idiot or an emotional imbecile does. So anyway, not at all logical. So there are keywords. I have to make a list, I suppose. Concepts that I got to stop them from from perverting all the time. Keep saying I'm using the words in different contexts when I'm not. I keep saying what the definition of the word is before I use it because they're requiring me to do that, and then they still deny me use of the word. It's like good in the other conversation, and they start talking about good rapists. Obviously, when I'm talking about good, I'm not talking about good rapists. I'm not talking about proficiency. I'm talking about whether something is intrinsically valuable. Yeah. No, I mean, it's just... it's just so manipulative. Alright, so, yeah, it's always the net outcome. So intentions are fun. It's good to have some good intentions. You're more likely, probably, right, to do the right thing if you have the right intentions. Certainly the opposite intentions to the right thing aren't likely to produce the right thing. You can understand that. But it doesn't matter. No, okay. So, you know, it's, yeah, I'm all for good intentions, but the end game is you have to perform. You have to hit the home runs. Wanting to, it's just not good enough. In the end, it's just a fact. There is such a thing as failure. You know, and it just doesn't matter whether you wanted not to fail. But, so yeah, the game is what you produce. And intentions, like I said, are kind of, you know, when you get into these whole ethical questions of, you know, you can set up some sort of slightly different probabilistic equation, and those equations just get impossible, right? I mean, you have a 1 in 10,000 chance of curing cancer by, you know, beating a rabbit to death with a screwdriver. You know, is it okay? I don't know. 1 in 10,000, that's not very good odds. But it's curing cancer, I mean, such a big payoff. I don't know, Davey. So there, intentions are important. No self-interest, no conflict of interest would be important. But the judgment, making that judgment is, I would almost argue, impossible, because you've thrown in a variable that's unresolvable, 1 in 10,000. You know, it just doesn't resolve to anything. It's not a number. It's 1 or 10,000. And you can't do math with a variable between 1 and 10,000. Anyway, so yeah, the more the equation is a risk equation, the more important it is that intent be unpolluted by anything other than a will to do the right thing. Okay. Yeah, so the probability is one of these key words, and those, when it's a probabilistic equation, it's different. kind of ethical equation, just not the same. Alright, in and of itself, yeah, so that one, I keep saying it, and it's really important, in establishing what actually has value. You have to separate it from context. So you separate rape from the idea that the rapist is a vampire who's going to cure cancer, and the victim is a diabolical mass murdering slut or some kind of bullshit. You get rid of that bullshit and just say, what's the end product in and of itself? A person is distressed, harmed, brutalized sensually, and another person gratifies desires that don't need to exist. And, so on an intrinsic level, it's obviously not a win. You're left with a negative remainder, decidedly. So I don't know how else to put that one. But I'm just saying, for the sake of argument, in all of these arguments, I've used the phrase in and of itself so many times that for Vic Mackey to ignore that I've said that there is no context in trying to evaluate what has value, and there's a huge difference between the things with intrinsic value and the extrinsic value. It's the difference between direct and indirect. It's the difference between product and byproduct. And it's a real difference, and I've made every effort to be clear that I'm talking about intrinsic value in the context where there is no context to pollute it. What is it in and of itself? Fuck. Anyway. This no real logic to self-interest. That's one I guess a lot of people just are going to have a problem with. I have a problem with it. It's the truth. I don't like to hear it, but it's a fact. You just can't deny the interchangeability of the pawns, the pieces. The fundamental fact that it's the experiences we're having that have the value, not us. We don't have any value. Our experiences have value. And it's basically the idea you just maximize experience. And it's just a sad truth that all this pretense, that high maintenance happiness is justifiable, is idiotic. It's just not. These elitist, pointy-toed, ballerina bullshit or whatever you want to, it's just all bullshit. You're either comfortable or uncomfortable. And if it takes $1 million a year to make you comfortable, you're way too fucking expensive. Better to make a model that can be made comfortable on, $1 a day. No point in having the, $700 a day model. Just a fact. You're less efficient. You're less likely to leave the world better for your existence if you have to consume huge amounts of misery resources, work of other people, to be comfortable. Fact. Alright. I'll probably go back to that one because you can just work on that one forever. Good is generated by preventing, yes, the bad. Preventing or suspending a negative circumstance, a negative condition. So it's not a statement I would make as an absolute yet, because maybe somebody can come up with some example of a real good, something that's not made out of a pre-existing negative dependency, an addiction, a dependency, a need that has to be satisfied, a condition, some negative that comes as a consequence of not having this good. You know, and all the goods are sort of made out of that. They're all just putting off a bad. They're all conversions of a deprivation. I'd certainly argue that, you know, I've had moments in my life where I thought my passions to be incredibly interesting, my fantasies. If they could be lived out, I would say, yes, that's a good idea. You know, but I do understand that most of those passions, those desires, were made out of years of deprivation. The fact that I am passionate or have a passion is because I did spend sufficient time in the desert, desperate for the water, and it just makes me capable of deriving a great deal of comfort and gratification from certain circumstances, because it's like appreciating the sun. You'd have to spend some time in the cave, you know, in the dark, to know how good it is, you know, to feel the sun. And so that's the catch of this existence thing, is that we think our positives are pure. We think the good is clean, and it's not really clean. It's made up of life experience and a measure of absence, distance, that makes it desirable, fun, and relieving, and comforting to gain the closeness. So I guess I'd say that thinking through most experiences in life, you can find the elements of tension and aggravation and gnawing, like even just being kind of poor. You know, it doesn't directly sit inside your mind, but it has all these little indirect strings, all these little tendrils that hang down and give you just a sense of urgency and desperation sometimes, and, you know, inadequacy and vulnerability, and, you know, clearly having all of that go away by some, you know, you inherit or you win the lottery or you something, would produce quite a bit of comfort and joy, because there's a lot of this subtle aggravations, limitations to your life created by this absence of money. Yeah. I mean, I used to have a little motorcycle. You know, I could just run down this path, you know, and it was just kind of nice because I could get here in 3 minutes, you know, instead of 25. But anyway, those are the kind of things, you know, that we're burdened by things limiting and eating our time, eating our capacity to get things we really want to get to, the things we really want to get to. Obviously, having to go to work, just, you know, when you think about how much of the average human being's life is just consumed by slavery to work, many of us, don't like. You know, we have jobs that just aren't that much fun. You know, they're work. They're jobs nobody else wants to do. And, you know, they're not, you know, there is a difference. Obviously, sometimes you can have work that's stimulating and not too much pressure, and, you know, it's fun. You know, it's rewarding in personal ways besides just monetary ways. And there's work that just beats your body to pieces and wears you down psychologically. So, yeah, probably enough on that. But that's a catch here, is that that's why the negative utilitarian is the rational position. It's because all we're really doing is exchanging bad for worse. We're just trying to minimize the losses, because there really is there's nothing to gain. There's no profit. As soon as you're born, you're a deficit engine. The negative, the emptiness, the deprivation comes with your existence. It's just all bad news in a way. So, a new heron. It's a very light colored one. Not much chance you can see that. But there's some geese over there, and there's a heron over in the corner. Very light. Almost, yeah, I guess it's white. So it's a white blue heron. Yeah, something like that. It's definitely got a heron look to it. Out slaughtering, unfortunately. See, it's existence. Just by existing, it creates a liability. If this is sane itself, it will cause harm. It'll ruin other creatures' day. You know, they'll have a perfectly nice, look, it's a nice sunny day, nice, and their day's going to get ruined, you know, by that shithead. And, you know, it's a reality. This has gotten quite swampy. There's even red swamp now. It's got like a red tide in it now. A little breezy. Sorry, I took the band-aid off because people keep bitching about the volume. And I really don't want to edit the videos to increase the volume. But maybe I will. Maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'll use a different camera. Yeah, so we'll see. Anyway, so again, this selfish thing, it's no way to avoid it. I mean, we're made that way. But rationally, again, if you have any respect for the truth, you understand that's what you are. And, you know, you deal with that in a rational way, by at least in philosophical conversation, acknowledging that your emotional revulsion to the fact that you're just one of the guys, you're just one of the players, maybe you don't like that status, it's the truth. You should be able to acknowledge it. That when the rubber hits the road, so to speak, you can't claim I'm entitled to you know, the better seat on the bus. You know, let the other people, you know, sit in the back. Yeah, that's just bullshit. Oh yeah, I forgot I should take this new path. I don't have to go through crippers. It's getting tall in here, so it's kind of creepy. As the grass gets tall, it's like, I don't want to step in there. Who knows what's in there? Probabilistic. Another one of those risk equations. Very hard to decipher the best answer. Which way? That way? That way? That way? That way? That does look pretty dry. But this is nice and flat. So I can't fall for any, I can't, there's a lot less distance to fall. So this has to be the winner, right? Has to be. Yeah, it worked. I'll go for that one. Oh, that was easy. Yeah. Alright. Okay. Done our job. So, this walk wears me out. Off to work I go. I hope. So, till the next time. And such. So forth we go. Yeah. It really isn't that complicated. People are just such assholes. Sickening assholes.